1019 WDET-FM. I'm Tia Graham.
And I'm Nick Austin. Today on the program, the Detroit City Football Club is planning to build a stadium in Corktown. We'll talk about why that's happening and the story behind DCFC's dedicated fans with the team's CEO.
But first, educators, mentors, coaches, and all the people in the community who support young people often go without the recognition they deserve. They often go without those flowers. I know this for myself. There have been so many influential people in my life who hold these titles. The Skillman Foundation recently started up the Skillman Visionary Awards. The award not only puts a spotlight on the individual work being done, but it also compensates those individuals who impact the lives of young people. Angelique Power is the president and CEO of the Skillman Foundation. Thank you so much for joining us on the Metro.
Thank you for having me.
And we have Jerwan Howard, is the founder of Moja Debate League and a recent recipient of a Spirit of Detroit Award in December of 2023, and also an awardee of this Visionary Award. Thank you so much for joining us on the Metro.
Thank you for having me.
And as well, just a heads up that the Skillman Foundation is a financial supporter of WDET Public Radio. But Angelique, we're going to start with you. Where did the individual or the idea for the individual cash awards come from to highlight and spotlight individuals?
Yes. So Skillman Foundation, for those who don't know, we're a 60-plus-year-old foundation. We have always focused on Detroit, always focused on young people. We have a new strategy which builds on the past. It's called people-powered education. And the concept is that we need everybody. We need folks that are working in community at the grassroots. We need folks that are working inside of classrooms and outside of classrooms. We need policymakers if we're going to get to the real systems change. And so as Skillman, we're going to use every tool we have. And so we know, one, education is the greatest tool we have to fight poverty. And two, that foundations can do a lot. We can give money to organizations, and we can give money to individuals who are change makers. So the Skillman Visionary Award is a $50,000 award. It goes directly to individuals. It's unrestricted. It's cash. And it's not to go do something. It's to visionaries who we already know are creating an echo effect with their work. And it's saying, we see you. We appreciate you. Keep going.
And we're going to bring Jerwan in here right now. Jerwan, I think about your particular avenue that you're using to mentor young people and to mentor kids. Debate as an after-school program. Of course, you're one of the awardee simple recipients, but debate as an after-school program. Why debate?
So the whole entire organization started in 2021, and I took debate myself in 10th grade at Renaissance High School. And my teacher was Miss Pamela Norris. And I always say debate literally kind of changed my life. I was a pretty shy, laid-back kid, and it brought something out of me, my confidence, my articulation, being able to stand firm on the opinion that I had. And once I came back home from Western Michigan in 2020, I wanted to give that back to Detroit youth, in particular middle schoolers. So I call debate like this tool for disguised learning. You get so much from it: critical thinking, self-expression skills, conflict resolution skills, all those things packaged into a program. And so that's why I wanted to do debate.
And being a black man, and you're, of course, in the city of Detroit, and you're talking to other young black men as well as young black women, but you're talking to other young black men. What is it like being in that position, being a black man, showing that you're educating young people, but showing that you're just there and you're support, and you're there to be a support? It's
super important. It's very hard to become what you don't see. And so for young black kids to see a young black man still prevalent in his community, still, giving back, trying to make the community better, I think it plants those seeds that we really can't measure, right? Because again, seeds were planted into me that I didn't even know were seeds until I became of age, and like, wow, how did I get this skill or this ideology? So that's my goal, to do the same exact thing, and I think it's paying off.
Yeah. So Angelique, you talked a little bit about just the importance of highlighting those individuals, but also just the importance of the organization doing the work in the community. So talk about being that bridge and having that opportunity to actually source out these type of funds to those who are doing the work.
Yes. A lot of times when we talk about Detroit, we focus on the things that we want to fix or the things we want to change. And what we miss is telling the story of, first of all, how many powerful people there are across the neighborhoods. Some of the most innovative education change work is happening inside of neighborhoods and inside of some policymaking spaces. And often, because of different forces, these things are sort of forced into scarcity mentality to work against each other. And a lot of what we want to do is not only tell the story that we need to fix education systems, but that we have all the tools we need right here. We have them, folks inside of Detroit who are doing incredible work. So the Visionary Awards are really meant to illuminate stars that exist and shine a light on this constellation of actors that are working on systems change. And we're just getting started. I mean, we're already in the midst of sourcing for round 2 of the Visionary Awards, and we're just going to keep going and going and going.
Yeah, I was going to say the funding, of course, from the foundation, but how many times you're going to do this a year? It's going to just be once a year? You're talking about possibly doing it again this year?
Well, so everything, the way that we do it is we actually find confidential nominators that are part of community. And so a lot of this is to get out of our own head and our own space. In foundation land, we often talk to each other, or we think that we're the experts. The experts are actually in community. And so we ask folks to nominate the people that they know are doing tremendous education systems change work. Then that comes in-house. Then we have a selection committee that really looks at the people-powered education strategy. So it really is it grassroots? Is it grass tops? Is it folks from across the city? Is it you guys were having a West Side, East Side conversation before we started. You know, are we representing that? Are we Southwest? Are we representing different generations? This is intergenerational work too. After school programs as well as in school programs. And so, yes, at least once a year, you will have an announcement of Visionary awardees, dollars that are going out. And then we're also doing other things with the awardees. We've already pulled them together and said, what else do you need from us? Yep. And so, you know, do you need a retreat? Do you need time to catch your breath? Do you need to hear from speakers? Do you need to connect to each other? We are planning on, money is just one thing, but there's social capital and moral capital that we're going to deploy to help our visionaries.
Oh, I love that. So Angelique Powers is president and CEO of the Skillman Foundation. We have Jerwan Howard. He's the founder of Umoja Debate League. And right now, Jerwan, I want to bring you back in and just talk a little bit. You know, Angelique just talked about, we had the conversation East Side, West Side, and we talked a little bit about, you know, the work that you're doing in that Far West Joy area, the Cody Rouge area and Cody High School, and that community. But what have you seen as you've been throughout different schools and different communities throughout the East and West Side of Detroit that you've seen? What need have you seen in these particular spaces in particular areas? Because I know that it's unique in Detroit. Absolutely. Based on like neighborhoods. So what have you seen? So
the main thing is that I learned is that these kids are brilliant. They just need a platform. That's the biggest thing. Once we give them the platform to showcase their intellect, how smart they are, how articulate they are, how good they are at arguing. Once they have that platform, they shine bright. And so what I've learned is not necessarily a lack of anything inside these communities besides just opportunity to thrive. And so regardless of, again, whether that's Southwest Detroit or East Side, West Side, the Cody Rouge area, that's been like the same exact kind of consensus across the board, is that once you give them that platform, you'll really see how smart these kids are. Yeah. And with the award, of course, and everything that you are learning through being an award recipient, talking to the other award recipients, what is it like to have a community that's starting to build itself up around you because of this opportunity? It's amazing. Kind of going back to what Angelique was saying, that we have everything we need here in this city. And so being in that room with the educators, with the in-school educators, the superintendent, parent advocates, everybody else, it literally kind of was a visual of how everything affects everything when it comes to education, and education affects everything else. So it's a holistic type of approach. So seeing that and being in the midst of it was very eye-opening. And I would say that I was joyful to actually see it in action. We talk about it often, but that was literally a room with everybody that we need to make change happen. The change makers were all in one space. So for you, just working with the young people, you started up the Umoja back in 2021. Since you've been working with young people, what have you learned from them? What have I learned from young? I mean, I learned patience. I've learned a lot of patience. I learned that I really enjoy teaching and working with young people. I was telling my friend the other day that my role now, I don't do a lot of direct service with the children anymore because we have coaches and everything like that. And in this phase of, growing the org, I've learned like, wow, I really enjoy direct interaction with the youth. Yeah. And I didn't know I had that. Again, I knew I had this goal to teach them certain things, but my passion is really, really with the youth. And that's something that I've been learning throughout this whole entire process.
I love that. And before I let you go, both of you go, just thinking about the importance of this particular visionary award and just thinking about the importance of giving back to community. What are some things that you would want to tell those out there who are doing the work every single day, doing it for years? What do you want to tell them, especially about an award like this, but just about the work that they're doing? I'm going to start with you, Angelique.
Detroit is a city of visionaries. You are seen and appreciated. And keep going, because our schools, what happens in our classrooms, what happens in our after-school programs, that is the catalyst for our future. So don't give up. This award is actually not even just about the 10 people that we gave it to. It really is a signal that Detroiters are innovative and important change is happening here.
And so I would kind of echo that. Keep going. Everything in our community, there's a role for everyone to play a role in the progress of our communities. So whether you just, whatever your role might be, keep going, because we need you. The children need you. The community needs you. We all need everyone to do their role and play their part in making this whole entire community better. So keep going.
Angelique Power is the president and CEO of the Skillman Foundation. We have Jerwan Howard, the founder of Umoja Debate League. Thank you both so much for joining us on the Metro, spreading the message, and hopefully changing the minds of those out there right now. So thank you both.
Thank you.
The Skillman Foundation is a financial supporter of WDET. This is The Metro. I'm Tia Graham.
And I'm Nick Austin. And coming up, we'll talk about the Detroit City Football Club's eventual move to from Hamtramck to Corktown.
This is The Metro on 101.9 WDET FM. I am Tia Graham.
And I am Nick Austin. As we get into the feeling of football this season, we've got the Detroit City Football Club fans who are really getting excited about what's happening. And if you've ever been to a DCFC game, you can feel the dedication. It's a dedication that's been shouted from the stands of Hamtramck's Keyworth Stadium for 8 years. But recently, the DCFC team has decided to move elsewhere. The club announced that it purchased the former Southwest Detroit Hospital in Corktown. They plan to open up a soccer stadium in the space by the team's 2027 season. To discuss this, we're going to speak a little bit later with DCFC president and CEO. We're going to talk about that with him a little bit later on. But before we get into that, WDET reporter Alex McLennan spoke with a range of people at that event to get a sense of how people are feeling about the future change.
The club has played at Keyworth Stadium in Hamtramck since 2016. It only has room for about 8,000 fans. DCFC has grown a lot since then, and fans have noticed that rival teams in the United Soccer League play in venues that are a bit less cozy. Fans like John Sarge say amenities like the concessions being set up in trucks in the parking lot are lacking.
Keyworth is not a soccer stadium.
Sarge says while he enjoys the history of the venue, it is time for an upgrade.
I mean, it's barely wide enough, and I'm glad I'm not playing on the pitch, because if you don't watch it, cut your angles right, you're going into the cushions that we put on the walls.
He also hopes a new home brings improved accessibility. Megan Heberlein is looking forward to updated facilities. She calls the bathroom arrangement in Hamtramck rough.
Rustic is a good word, yes. So to have updated bathrooms would be lovely, especially with flush toilets.
Technically, there are some flush toilets at Keyworth.
But I'll take the porta potties over those.
That said, there are things about DCFC's current home that fans want to see in Corktown, as Jason Schub explains.
One thing we really want to have is the supporter section, right on top of the field like we have there.
In Hamtramck, the Northern Guard's place in the stands is along the east side of the field, directly behind City's player bench. That's different from a lot of stadiums where die-hard supporter sections are often found behind the goal.
I think it actually is a benefit to the team. I mean, it creates an atmosphere unlike anything else in American sports.
That isn't all fans say Keyworth has going for it. They think positively of the food trucks that show up on game day. Train tracks run alongside the stadium. Fans wave at passing engineers who blow the horn going by during matches. Daniel Ahern says it all makes for an environment unlike anything else.
There's been some pictures that are aerial pictures of Keyworth, like during a match. And you'll look and you'll go, God, that looks like second-tier England, second-tier Germany, the neighborhood clubs. It's a great place to play.
Beyond maintaining a unique atmosphere, what the field is made of is also a priority raised by many of DCFC's community owners. Fans, like Ahern, say they want to see the playing surface made of grass, not turf.
Yeah, God created this game to be played on real grass, bro.
Jason Schub is also on the grass bandwagon.
In American soccer, most of the teams that are out there are playing on grass. I think the teams prefer to play on it. The players definitely prefer to play on it.
That's feedback club leaders will consider. There's still a lot to do before construction can kick off at the Corktown site. For example, the long vacant Northwest Detroit Hospital on the property will need to be knocked down. DCFC leaders say they're exploring a community benefits package to qualify for tax breaks from the city government. If all goes to plan, the club hopes to be playing in its new home in 2027.
That was WDET reporter Alex McLennan speaking at a DCFC event about the football club's plan to move to Corktown.
That is the sound of Detroit City Football Club fans when they're seeing their favorite team perform, and those are the sounds that you've been hearing from the stands if you've gone to any game at Hamtramck's Keyworth Stadium for the past 8 years. But as we mentioned, a big move is happening, and to discuss it and the eventual new home, we have the DCFC CEO and co-owner Sean Mann with us. Sean, welcome to the Metro.
Yeah, thanks for having me, and I'm glad you cut that chant when you did, because it gets naughtier real quick after that. So.
Shout out to our producer for that one.
So you're saying attending the games, just parental advisory is necessary, right? Parental guidance?
Yeah, I mean, there's soccer words. That's what we call it at home.
All right. Well, I've been to some soccer games in Europe where I've seen out-and-out fire from trash cans. So it looks like you haven't gotten to that point. And you don't want that to happen in the new space when you decide to move to Corktown. But let's just start here. What prompted this decision, and why Corktown?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is the start of the next chapter. I think one of the most unique and exciting stories in American professional sports, and it's happened right here in our community, right? Like, we started at Cass Tech and back in 2012, and we outgrew that, and then we moved to Keyworth in 2016, and Hamtramck has been great to us. Great partnership there with the school and the city and the neighbors, and we've, as an organization, moved up the ladder of American soccer a few years ago. We're now at USL Championship, the level just below MLS, fully professional. And I think to be a viable entity at that level, and also, coming out of COVID, we realized, like, as the guys who started this, we wanted this to be something that lived beyond us and be a staple in this community for generations to come. And so we need the best footing to do that, and a venue that matched the level that we're at now. And so that prompted us to start looking for a forever home for DCFC.
Yeah, and that is a big level that you're reaching. We had the big win against Columbus Crew. Speaking of going up and beating an MLS team, showing the growth that you guys have had in this time. Yet, even as you say that, some people are sad to see you lose or see you leave Hamtramck and Keyworth Stadium, such an intimate environment. What do you say to those fans?
I mean, it is bittersweet. Like, Keyworth is personal to me. It's interwoven into, the last 8+ years of my life. I joke about my now wife. I dragged her to Keyworth for one of our first dates when I was like conceptualizing what, DCFC would be, right? And, taking, my boys to games and stuff there. I think I take solace in the fact that Keyworth is a public space. We don't own it. That, no matter what, it would be left in a better shape than, when we showed up, when it was slated for demo. And that, it's not going to go away like Tiger Stadium, right? It's still going to be there. And, we want to work with Hampshire schools in the city to make sure that it's activated and set up for success well beyond, our professional teams playing there.
Yeah, well, all I heard from that is that I should say I'm a co-owner of a soccer team, and maybe then the dating life skyrockets. This is good to know, Sean.
Yeah.
You are moving, of course, to that space, former hospital. That's going to be in Southwest. I mean, how does this come together? Are you going to completely reconstruct the place, or how are the plans going in terms of what it's going to take to actually get the facility that you need there?
Yeah, I mean, Southwest Hospital will have to come down. There's no retrofitting that or anything like that. So we are working on those plans, the site plans, architectural, working with the city on the financing of it, what that looks like.
City on the financing of that.
Sure.
Great point, because a lot of things that have happened with the pro stadiums, there's been a lot of public money that goes into it. Where are we looking at in terms of what you guys are expecting from public finance, if at all?
Yeah, those details will be coming out in the coming months.
Sure.
I would say, given who we are, where we come from, and also, looking at the sports landscape in America, I think we're probably on the other end of the spectrum from what you're seeing in the headlines, for the mega projects and everything like that. I live a couple blocks from the stadium site. I've lived on West Grand for 15, 16 years now. One of the other founders, Todd, lives 3 blocks on Bagley, the other direction. Like, this is our backyard, and so it means a lot to us, like, to do it and do it right. And this whole thing's been a civic endeavor for us.
Well, let's think about the civic portion of this a little bit. I'm thinking in terms of having a location where all our sports are. It is kind of cool that you can see the Pistons, the Red Wings, and the Tigers kind of in all a walkable distance. But you've made an intentional decision to move to Southwest. Was there any thought in maybe trying to be part of that ecosystem if we're around the big boys, then we start to look and elevate to the place of the big boys? Or what was your calculation there?
I mean, I think we've found like the perfect location. And I think that in the sense that we tie in nicely to existing neighborhoods and places that people from across this region feel comfortable and regularly go to, right? Whether it's the places on Bagley and Verner in Mexican Town or Corktown on Michigan Avenue. And you can see we're a nice bridge to that. And then also, like, we're complementing the historic investments that are also happening in Corktown as well. So we're not planting like some alien ship, in the middle of a neighborhood. Like, we're helping bridge. Frankly, it's a no man's land right now where the hospital is in 20th Street, and so activating that and tying together neighborhoods, that's incredibly appealing to us. And then on top of that, you have 2+ million cars a week that drive through that 96-75 interchange. Like, we will have the biggest billboard in Metro Detroit.
Soccer on an alien ship might be the future, Sean. So when you're thinking of how to renovate or not renovate, build, that might be an idea. But speaking of community, at a recent meeting, you spoke about possibly entering into a community benefits agreement with the city of Detroit as part of the reconstruction of the hospital. In our experience, at least mine, I know that there's been some that kind of balk or feel like that's an onerous process. So can you tell us why you volunteered that and what that might look like from your eyes?
Well, I don't think we actually said that. I think that we're waiting to see where, things stand with the city and what the requirements are going to be. So that's something we look forward to working with the mayor's office and the economic development agencies over the coming months. That being said, I was one of the founders of the Hubbard Farm Neighborhood Association 15 years ago, right? And again, like, this is our backyard, so we have no concerns about engaging neighbors or anything like that. I know the people who are most vocal in the neighborhood because I've been at the meetings with them protesting, such and such over the years, and so we've gotten shockingly positive responses from folks, right out of the gate. So. It's kind of core to who we are. And so, I mean, this is the first time that we're aware of where the C-suite of a professional sports team is like built a stadium in their own neighborhood, right? So
it lends you a lot of credibility right there, doesn't it?
Right. So, we look forward to that process. And part of that process is our fans as well. And from the audio you got, they're going to hold our feet to the fire just as much as anybody in the community will.
Talking with Sean Mann right now, CEO for the Detroit City Football Club. And I just want to ask you a little bit more about community. You've been there for about 15 years, over 15 years now. You've had so many life milestones have happened within that time frame. Talk about just being in that community, being a member of the community, but putting something in that space that will be reflective of that said community, excuse me, in terms of architecture, in terms of the way that it's set up, and, just the flow of it in that neighborhood, bridging those communities of Corktown and Southwest.
Yeah, it's top of mind. I mean, from the very beginning of the site, there's a lot of reason that appeals to us. One of them is it's tackling one of the most blighted properties in our neighborhood, right? And turning that, blight into a positive use. We came out of the small business ecosystem, right? Like in 2012 when we launched, the big three weren't sponsoring our team, right? So we went to our friends who own small businesses who each sponsored an individual player. And that story is carried over where that's still our friend group. And to this day, it's still the food trucks that are at our games. And so I think we want to use the stadium and anything else that happens around us as like a platform to elevate small businesses. So it's working with SDBA and the Corktown Business Association and the designated incubator startups in this community to how do we activate this site to make it something that's true to who we are? Because we're never going to compete. Even if we were MLS, we're not competing with the other guys in town. We have to distinguish ourselves, and I think leaning into that authenticity is core.
Sean Mann, CEO for the Detroit City Football Club. Thanks for joining us on the Metro.
Thank you. Metro on 101.9 WDET FM. Just heard from Nick Austin. Really interesting conversation about Detroit City Football Club. However, coming up, we'll talk about the issue of kids ingesting cannabis and what school district superintendent is trying to do to stop it. You all stay right there for the Metro.
It's the Metro on 101.9 WDET. I'm Nick Austin.
And I'm Tia Graham. Officials in the Detroit School District recently asked Governor Gretchen Whitmer to address cannabis among young kids. That's because students have been documented using marijuana 750 times, either intentionally or unintentionally. Robert Vincent is a reporter for Chalkbeat Detroit who has covered the issue. And this week, she spoke with Created Equal host Stephen Henderson about why the issue has recently gotten more attention.
Superintendent of Detroit Public Schools, Nikolai Vitti, is really the one who has helped to shed some light on this issue, one that we can be certain is not only happening in Detroit schools, right? Cannabis is legal statewide, so this is certainly not just a Detroit issue, and I think that's important to acknowledge, right? But it was a leader in Detroit schools who was willing to come out and say this. So when I spoke with him, he told me that he's been hearing from many of his school principals that things have really gotten out of hand, that incidents with cannabis have become disruptive in the classroom, right? And he also told me there were some recent incidents involving a second and a third grader. And anytime kids that young are involved in an incident right in school that has to do with drugs, that really deepens the sense of urgency.
Yeah. So how much of this is about intentional versus unintentional use. I think that's an important distinction.
Absolutely. And I think what we're talking about more than anything else is unintentional use. That's really where the problem lies. And that typically means that these are kids who are getting hold of their parents' stash, right? Because if you are a little bit older and maybe you're experimenting and you start to feel bad, you know what you've done. You're probably going to wait it out. You're probably not going to call poison control or ask your parents to take you to the hospital. And it also is not going to affect you in the same way that it would a young kid, both like from a central nervous system perspective, but also from a mental health perspective.
Yeah. So what would the school district officials here in Detroit imagine would be reasonable things for the governor and the legislature to do? Do they have regulations that they'd like to see put in place?
They do. So they want to see better enforcement of the packaging and labeling of marijuana products. And I should note, Michigan does prohibit edibles that resemble candy packaging, right? Like anything that
can't be gummy bears, for instance.
Totally. Or it can't, yes, it cannot look enticing to kids. It shouldn't be in a package that says, Sour Patch, cannabis kitties, whatever. But those products still seem to be floating around. And they're also calling for detection systems in schools for marijuana and vape pens, which the latter, Superintendent Vitti said, is even a bigger problem, right? Even more widespread, the use of vape pens. And they also want to see public awareness campaigns funded through cannabis revenues and taxes.
That was Chalk Beat reporter Robin Vincent speaking with Created Equal host Stephen Henderson. You can listen to Created Equal every weekday from 9 to 10 a.m. and find the show wherever you find your podcasts. This is The Metro. I'm Tia Graham.
And I am Nick Austin. And right now, we have learned that the Detroit Regional Chamber has canceled a debate between two leading U.S. Senate candidates because they didn't want to participate. Bridge, Michigan reports Democratic Congresswoman Alyssa Slotkin and former Republican Congressman Mike Rogers declined invitations to debate during the Chamber's policy conference on Mackinac Island next week. The Chamber blames today's political climate and says ultimately the voters lose. Slotkin and Rogers each have primary challengers.
And speaking of challenges, I'm thinking about the weather this afternoon. Scattered thunderstorms this morning, otherwise partly cloudy with a high of 85 degrees. Be prepared tomorrow. Mostly sunny with a high of 83. And Friday, ending your week, sunny with a high of 84 degrees. We may see rain Saturday and Sunday, but looking pretty good starting the weekend off. So do get those ponchos ready for movement. If it does decide to rain this weekend, just make sure you're prepared for that because it does not stop the shuffle.
I already experienced some rain on the way into work and was really nervous because I didn't even know if I had my umbrella in the car. Well, one I did, but it was moot because as soon as I parked, no rain. So if you need I need someone to prevent rain, like the rain dance or whatever, it feels like I might have the power to you.
I don't. It comes every time I'm out, it rains. I leave for work, it's raining. No umbrella.
I'm going to test
no
you on
poncho.
this hypothesis after work. I'm just going to be
rain.
scoping out, seeing it. And if it does, I'm telling the people tomorrow.
This is the Metro.
It is the Metro on 101.9 WDET. And when we think about people who we consider caregivers, we don't often think about men. But a number of black men in particular are giving care for their aging family members. And according to recent studies, there are benefits to doing this kind of work. NPR reporter Ashley Milne-Tate looked into why.
The last day has not gone the way Robert Turner expected. His father, who's 85, ended up in the hospital last night, and he's just picking him up to take him back to the family home in Piscataway, New Jersey.
Say goodbye to the hospital, Dad. Tell everybody goodbye.
About half an hour later, Turner pulls into the driveway of the house where he grew up, eases his dad out of the car, and with the help of their home health aide, supports him up the stairs.
You got him, Kim?
Okay. And settles him into a chair in the living room.
How's your hand feel?
Much better.
Much better?
Yeah.
It's good to be back from the hospital, right?
That's it.
All right.
Turner's father, also called Robert, has Alzheimer's. He joined the Marines at 19 years old, became an electrician, had 4 kids, and in later years was a deacon at his church. Turner has been taking care of his dad since his mom died 2 years ago. He is glad to do it.
He has shown me every step of the way how to be a man. Even now in his state, he is showing me what dignity and what grace is and what honor and respect and how to age gracefully.
As well as being a son, Turner is a professor in the medical school at George Washington University. And for the last several years, he's been conducting a study into the brain health of black men who look after someone with dementia. He says not only do African American men have poorer health than other Americans and deal with negative perceptions of who they are,
They rate that they have more of a financial burden being a caregiver than any other group.
family relationships can affect stress levels too. Diane Mariani oversees the Caring for Caregivers program at Rush University Medical Center in Chicago.
Sometimes there's a large family, but nobody else is asking, what can I do, or providing support. There's a lot of excuses.
Adding to feelings of isolation and overload in a role many men choose not to discuss publicly. Mariani says researchers found caregivers in her program do better, and so do the older people they care for, who have
fewer hospital stays and shorter, lengths of stay that are spent in the hospital.
Showing, she says, how tightly connected caregiver and care recipient are. Don Williams commutes each month from Maryland to care for his mother in Georgia. She's 97. He's a member of a faith-based caregivers support group that meets online.
My faith has gotten me through so many different things over my life, and I know that it helps sustain me and to help me make decisions that I need to, because I couldn't do this by myself.
Williams is a widower, and he has had metastatic prostate cancer. He's fit his caregiving alongside his cancer treatment, which just wrapped up. He says it has been a strain, but...
if my mother leaves this world before me, I know I will have done everything I could to contribute to her quality of life.
Robert Turner feels the same way. His dad has good and bad days. But even on a day that began in the hospital, he's cheerful.
Oh, when the saints go marching in, Lord, I wanna be in that number. When the saints come marching in, oh, when...
Turner says he's looked up to his father his whole life, and he'll be there as long as his dad needs him.
That was NPR's Ashley Milne-Tate reporting on how caregiving impacts those people who give care. This is The Metro.
This is The Metro on 101.9 WDET FM. Just heard from Nick Austin. I'm Tia Graham. And Nick, I just think about the conversation we just heard about caregiving. And oftentimes we don't think about men being in that space and being in that place. But to hear that conversation and hear that story, I think it was just great for all of us to hear that, men do actually do these type of things, and they do this work behind the scenes that no one's giving them credit for. So, shout out to that.
Shout out to that.
Yeah.
Men doing the work.
Men.
You know what? You're welcome to you.
No, I was literally about to say, don't let me give you too much credit here, okay? I'm not going to give you too much credit, but I will say that was a really heartfelt story, and I really enjoyed listening to that. So just, shout out to those caregivers out there, all the caregivers out there. But coming up on The Metro, we'll hear about a new campaign to better understand the mental health challenges of Detroit residents. You stay there for The Metro.
It's The Metro on 101.9 WDET. I'm Nick Austin.
And I'm Tia Graham. And in recent years, conversations about mental health have been getting more attention. But what does it look like when someone is struggling with their mental health? And what are the things that people need in order to improve their mental health? in collaboration with Mayor Mike Duggan, Detroit City Council Pro Tem James Tate is issuing a survey to better understand his constituents' mental health needs. The campaign is called Protect Your Crown, and it's meant to spread awareness of existing services and potentially advocate for new services people need. To learn more about the survey, we have President Pro Tem James Tate here. Councilmember Tate, thank you so much for joining us on the Metro.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, so you're sending out this survey today. What spurred the Protect Your Crown campaign? I love that name.
Yeah, so Protect Your Crown, and the crown, of course, is the top of your head there, the top of your body. It is important for me, and I've, like others, have struggled at times with mental health concerns. Don't always talk about it. Don't try to put it out there because, adults love to weaponize the things that may be a little bit challenging to you. But I've been talking about it with kids, for a number of years whenever I go and speak at any type of venue where I have young children, because I think that they need to know that even when you walk into a room and they announce your name, James Tate is coming in, I'm still human. And I have some of those same issues that I have not been able to shake since I was your age. And I can't allow those things to stop me. I have to get around whatever that barrier is. And I tell them, get around it. If you can't get around it, you need to go above it. If you can't go above it, go under. And if that doesn't work, then you got to bust through it. But you have to get over to the other side. And it's been very therapeutic even for myself, because as I talk about it with the young people, I continue to encourage me to be the best me that I can for them.
Yeah. So, what kind of questions are you going to be asking on this survey? What are some of the things that you want to learn from your constituents in order to better help them? Yeah, well, the one thing we always want to emphasize is that it is confidential. Because there are some questions on there that we're prying. We're learning. We want to know more about you. What's working and what's not working in our mental health care system that we have, the network that we have. So, has someone in your family been diagnosed? Have you been diagnosed? Again, very personal. We don't want to know who you are, so there's no name attached. The only identifier that we have is what zip code are you from? Because we want to know what's happening in this part of the city versus that part of the city. And what we will do, our goal is 5,000 completed surveys. With those 5,000 completed surveys, it'll give us a better understanding, again, of what those mental health concerns are in the city of Detroit. And now it gives us more of a compass, a guide towards which resources we should be searching for, seeking, and allocating within our city. So it's not just a spitball approach. Hey, let's try this. It is really addressing the concerns that have been present, put before us. And I think about the survey, but of course, I put myself in there, personal story in there myself, but we have members of my family who also are going through mental health challenges, and oftentimes it's hard to lead them to help. It's hard to get them to help. So in what ways will you see this survey helping bridge that gap into leading people to the help that they actually need without, the extra burdens that come with it? Yeah, the survey is almost like the homework part of it, right? So that's the homework, and a lot of people don't like to do the homework, but it's important. It's the medicine. What we also have is a song that I created and performed. It's Protect Your Crown and All the Way Down. And it's important for us to make sure that we protect the crown, but all the way down as well, the full body, because what you put inside your body affects your mental health. The lack of movement affects your mental health. All of these things affect the way that you approach life. And if you don't address your mental health concerns, you can't be the best you for yourself, those around you, your children. And we see people who have what's called adverse childhood experiences, ACEs. We see that they have had these traumatic experiences as young people. And whatever that defense mechanism that they learned to survive as a child, if they felt that was what has kept them alive and kept all of the bad things away from them, they're going to continue that through their older age as they mature. That's not always helpful, because those things that we had to rely on to just survive, that's all it was doing, keeping us alive, and at least in our minds. But there's other ways that when you grow older, you learn more conflict resolution. You learn how to deal with the stressors. We should. And if we don't, we label it as bad behavior, deviant behavior, criminal behavior. And there has to be some level of accountability for those who create these acts. But we also have to
do what we can to find out what leads individuals to that pathway of that deviant, bad criminal behavior. And if we don't do that, all we'll be doing is rinse and repeating the same process that we have seen that really isn't working thus far.
I hear you. You want to take care of it on the front end as opposed to on the back end. It's going to be more costly there when we're trying to fix an issue that could have been taken care of earlier. You've been fairly open, Pro Tem Tate, with your own struggles that you mentioned, and you're asking people to share. Could you tell briefly what you can share about that to maybe prompt some folks to get involved and show why it's important? Maybe somebody out there can resonate with your story.
Yeah, I'm like a lot of folks, I've got this sense of I've got to be perfect all the time, and especially when you're in the public eye.
Yeah.
I am the longest serving member currently on the Detroit City Council, 14 years. So there's some level of expectation of superpowers that comes with that. And there's some days where I don't feel like I'm smart enough. It's days where I'm trying to figure out how to help Ms. Johnson with her issue. There's some legislation in front of me, and I know the problem is there and I know how it's impacting people, but I just can't figure it out. That's hard. That's hard because I know I'm not coming into it for a title. I'm coming in to change my community, make my community better. I remember a lot of us revert back to the time during the pandemic, and I think that will be a moment in history. Certainly, I'll never forget. Hopefully, I'll never have that happen again. But I remember during the height of it, there was an expectation, again, with us and our superpowers in government, we've got to save as many citizens as we can, right? We've also got to save our family members. We also got to try to save ourselves. While all of these things are uncertain at the time, and I don't say that to say that what I was going through was more important than anybody else. It's just, hey, I can identify with you because I know the scale of what I had to experience. It changed my brain.
Yeah.
I think differently now. There are times where there were some things that I would kind of put on the back burner. I don't do that anymore because everything is like at a fine point. We got to do it now. We got to do it now. And if it doesn't go right, man, I've got a ton of bricks on me. And, someone can tell me you're great, you're doing an awesome job 1,200 times. It's those 3 or 4 people. And I know I probably shouldn't say that because, again, people weaponize it, but those 3 or 4 people, they weigh on you.
Yeah, but we see that, right, on social media. It's why it's so effective. You can get 12,000 shout-outs. The 3 that come through are the ones that you're retweeting and talking about, right? Yeah. But before we close out, got about a minute left, I just want to say, in terms of what city government can do, city council, for people who don't have trust in government, which we've discussed a little bit, say, you don't pick up my trash on time, you're not removing this blight. What levers can city council pull to help people in this space once you get the information in terms of mental health?
Yeah, so we're doing some of those things better, I must say.
I'm saying I'm sitting in the shoes of the person.
Right, and I get you. So one of the things that we can do is, again, just stripping away this air of superiority and invincibility, letting folks know that we are human, just like they are. But this information that we're going to get from these prayerfully 5,000 completed surveys, it's going to allow us to better allocate the resources that we have currently in the city of Detroit and give us a better vision of what we should be seeking right now. We have tons of potential opportunity there. Now it's time for us not to use information from New York, Chicago, but right here in the city of Detroit to apply in the city of Detroit.
Detroit City Council Pro Tem James Tate is pushing out a survey for his constituents to explore the mental health issues they face. Pro Tem James Tate, thank you so much for joining us on the Metro. I think about the 2020 pandemic and how it all did change a lot of us, and I just think about spreading more love and more joy whenever I'm out and about. So that's one thing that the pandemic did for me that was positive.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us.
And that's going to do it for the Metro for Tuesday, May 21st. You can listen to recent episodes online at WDET.org and make sure to subscribe to the podcast on your favorite platform.
The show is produced by Sam Corey, David Lyons, and Jack Philbrandt, and our engineer is Nate Bender.
The Metro is a production of WDET, a listener-supported service of Wayne State University. If you like what you hear and want to support the Metro, consider becoming a member at WDET.org/donate.
This is WDET-FM, Detroit Public Radio, your connection to news, music, and conversation. Thank you so much for listening, and you all have a great day.